Security discovered the single dad's bag, but wait until you hear what his mom revealed next. Jake stood stiffly in line at the airport, anxiety clawing at his insides. The weight of his battered backpack, a relic from less complicated days, rested heavily on his shoulder. He was a mechanic, not a traveler, but a trip to see his aging father had become non-negotiable. As he shuffled forward, the prospect of the journey felt like a massive weight, one he could hardly bear. The chaotic atmosphere around him blended into a dull roar, amplifying his exhaustion and self-doubt. "Sir, please step aside," a stern voice commanded. His heart raced. They dug through his bag, tossing aside clothes and a half-eaten granola bar until they unearthed something astonishing. A weathered journal, tattered at the edges, emerged, his mother's hidden past unveiled. For a fleeting moment, the world around him faded as memories flickered through his mind, her gentle hands tracing the edges of canvases, laughter ringing out while paintbrushes danced in vibrant strokes. But that was a lifetime ago, a chapter drowned beneath the weight of expectations and responsibility. Lily's cheerful humming cut through his reverie, a reminder of the life he fought to maintain every day. The thought of her watching him, her trusting eyes filled with hopes he wasn't sure he could fulfill, made him feel even heavier. Here he was, a man conscripted to the routine of oil, rust, and tires, while she deserved so much more. He glanced back at the agent, who continued to scrutinize the journal. In those pages were the dreams of a woman whose talent had once shone bright, but dimmed under the reality of raising a family, just as Jake felt trapped under the weight of his own. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. He gritted his teeth as they flipped through the pages, sketches of landscapes, faces, her thoughts spilled out in ink like the colors of her paint. Each line screamed at him, reigniting a spark of a passion he had buried deep. But was this what Lily needed? An emotionally wise dad pursuing some forlorn dream of artistry? No, she needed stability. A safe home with food on the table, not a father squared against his own insecurities, chasing shadows of an artist who never was. The fear deepened as he recalled his father's rigid expectations, the voice echoing in his mind, "Men work hard, Jake. Art is for dreamers, not doers." He could hear it now, drumming a panic-stricken rhythm in his ears as time ticked by. He wrestled the journal from the agent's hand, desperation nipping at his resolve. But what if the family legacy weighed down on him like a heavy chain? The looming art exhibit he dared to enter would soon echo with laughter, acceptance, and judgment, but whose? Could he stand to face his father and the treasure trove of memories it brought back, the daunting shadow of his mother's unfulfilled aspirations? Jake's breath hitched, eyes darting to the swirling crowd. He was at the precipice of decision, grappling with the ghosts of his past, struggling to catch his footing. In this moment, everything seemed to spiral, threatening to push him toward a future he wasn't sure was worth the risk. With a consuming sense of dread, he opened the journal again and, just like that, a folded note slipped out, holding a secret that could shatter everything he thought he knew. Searching the crowd for familiar support, he hoped to find the strength to step into the light. Jake unfolded the note, his fingertips trembling as curiosity battled with fear. The handwriting, the fluid, elegant strokes, was unmistakably his mother's. He inhaled sharply, recalling the way she'd scribble reminders and sketches on napkins, often leaving behind a small piece of her creative spirit in mundane places. What possible revelation could be tucked inside these delicate lines? As the bustling airport swirled around him, he found a small pocket of stillness. Quietly, he read. "Dear Jake, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer there to guide you. Know that you have a gift. You may feel the weight of expectations like a chain around your neck, but within you lies a spark that can ignite greatness. Remember to color outside the lines." His breath caught in his throat. Each word bore the weight of her conviction, a belief he had long since buried beneath layers of practical responsibility. He blinked back sudden tears, grappling with the maelstrom of conflicting emotions surging through him. In that moment, surrounded by strangers and the metallic scent of the airport, Jake felt as if the walls of expectation were crumbling around him, revealing glimmers of possibility he had long denied. But mixed with the thrill of realization was the suffocating grip of doubt. What would change if he seized this hint of potential? Would he be abandoning Lily's future, risking the stability he fought so hard to create? Rubbing the bridge of his nose, he tucked the note back into the journal, gripping the leather cover like a lifeline. The mechanical hum of the airport morphed into a symphony of noise, drowning out his racing thoughts. He wanted nothing more than to curl back into the cocoon of responsibility, to be the steady father she needed, to ensure her life was filled with predictability and structure. But could he truly ignore this calling, this whisper of destiny, echoing from the pages left behind? Ahead, a family laughed together, the contrasting warmth of their connection washing over him. It struck him then his fear came not just from risking his own comfort, but also from the thought of shattering his daughter's safe world. Yet, in that very moment, he felt the stirring of something within him, a realization that perhaps, in pursuing what made him come alive, he might inspire the same spirit in Lily. Stepping aside, away from the checkpoint, he placed the journal on a nearby bench, contemplating the delicate balance between his past and future. What if he embraced this flicker of artistic flair and channeled it into something that could uplift both him and Lily? A road of uncertain twists lay before him, but beyond that, an opportunity awaited to redefine their narrative as a father-daughter duo, the chance to embrace a legacy rather than bury it beneath fear. Jake steadied himself, anchored by newfound determination. He needed a plan, not just for the moment but for the future he hoped to reshape. Thoughts tumbled through his mind like gears in a well-oiled machine, searching for clarity in the chaos. As he moved through the airport toward his gate, the weight of the journal felt lighter. The first step was clear: he would reach out to the local art community, explore measures to reinstate his mother's legacy, intertwined with his own. This was more than a sentimental journey, it was a chance to construct a life that honored both his mother's dreams and his own. Approaching the gate, anticipation ignited new fears, but Jake steadied his breathing, ready to engage with the unknown. It was time to confront not only the shadows of his mother's past but his own as well. What he didn't yet know was that confronting his father would bring challenges he hadn't anticipated, reshaping his path in unexpected ways. With every step toward the boarding area, he felt the thrill of change brushing against him, a hint of the uncharted territory ahead. The question lingered ominously in his mind: how far was he willing to go to transform his life's trajectory? Jake's thoughts raced as he boarded the plane, the engine's roar signaling a departure from the life he had known. He found his seat, the vibrations of the aircraft matching the tumult within him. The journal, now a constant companion, rested in his lap, a reminder of the call to rediscover not only his mother's legacy but his own artistic spirit. With shaky hands, he opened it again, letting his eyes trace the comforting words he had read moments prior. As the plane taxied, he allowed his mind to wander to the next steps. Reaching out to the local art community felt daunting. He didn't even know where to start. What could he contribute? His mind dimmed the brightness of his mother's words under specters of inadequacy. The flicker of artistic possibilities taunted him. Could someone like him, a steady father and office worker, truly make an impact in an arena filled with creativity and passion? He thought of Lily. What kind of example would he set for her if he turned away from this opportunity? The weight of expectation surged once again, and he closed his eyes, straining for clarity amidst the noise. The flight attendants began safety announcements, but Jake barely heard them. His thoughts were a whirlpool, dragging him deeper into uncertainty. He envisioned himself in a small, brightly lit gallery, surrounded by vibrant pieces of art and discussions that flowed like music. But those images were overshadowed by the chilling prospect of failure. Self-doubt whispered cruelly, reminding him of his comfortable, albeit mundane, existence. Abruptly, the plane leveled out, and Jake cracked open the journal, flipping to a blank page near the back. What he needed was a plan, a tangible outline that could bridge the gap between the flickering spark of creativity and the reality of his responsibilities. He reached for the pen tucked beside the notes, letting the ink glide across the page. Step 1, visit local galleries, he wrote, feeling a swell of rebellion against the familiar chains of doubt. Step 2, join an art class, creative spaces. Each word took form like strokes on a canvas that represented his future, bold and unafraid. The act of writing felt liberating, each item carving out a path forward that was distinctly his. As the hours passed, he jotted down ideas, each sentence laced with both fear and promise. He brainstormed ways to help Lily engage with her own creativity, envisioning Saturday painting sessions at home, filled with laughter and vibrant colors. Thoughts of her joy ignited something vital within him. This journey wasn't just about him, this was about them, about showing her that pursuing passion was an adventure worth exploring. He was grateful for this newfound purpose, yet apprehensions lingered. What would Lily think when she saw him take a step into the unknown? Would she embrace her talent as a result, or would she think he was abandoning her for a selfish dream? The plane began its descent, and Jake's heart raced with anticipation, but also with a deep-seated fear that gnawed at his resolve. The bustling scene he would face at the airport would feel drastically different from the cocoon of the plane. Away from the pages of his journal, the chaos of reality awaited. With the landing gear retracting, he closed his journal and stared out the window at the clouds dissipating below, revealing the city's outlines. What lay ahead was uncertain, but in that uncertainty lay potential for him to grow, to challenge old narratives woven by fear and responsibility. Jake's mind crystallized a sense of commitment. He would face his father next and confront the expectations that had shackled him for too long. What legacy did he truly want to leave behind for himself and for Lily? The resolve surged within him. He could feel it subtly transforming doubt into purpose. He took a grounding breath, ready to absorb the chaos ahead. He dared to envision a conversation with his father, one that could reshape not only his past but also the future. Was he brave enough to embark on this confrontation? As the wheels touched down, Jake's thoughts spiraled with renewed intensity. It was time to rise beyond acceptance and towards fulfillment. The moment of truth was dawning, and he embraced it as he prepared to take the first step into his transformative journey. How would he face the ghosts of his past? The cacophony of the airport engulfed Jake as he stepped off the plane, the unfamiliar surroundings striking with an unexpected intensity. Voices mingled, announcements echoed, and the smell of coffee and pastries wafted through the air, a stark contrast to the quiet confines of his thoughts during the flight. Each step felt heavy, weighed down by the looming confrontation with his past. He grabbed his bag from the carousel, his journal tucked securely inside, a lifeline to the aspirations he had clung to in the air. The steady beat of advocates outside the terminal pulled at him like a gravitational force, and he hesitated for just a moment to take it all in. The bustling life around him mirrored the influx of life he hoped to inject into his own existence. Reality beckoned, yet the fear of stepping on uncertain ground clawed at his confidence. The crumpled note from his mother, hidden between the pages of his journal, resurfaced in his mind. Her encouragement had always been a formidable force, and now he needed to summon that spirit of encouragement within himself. Navigating these new waters meant facing not just his father's expectations, but the hidden uncertainty that lay within him. Jake took a deep breath, pushing through the sea of new faces and energy. He felt exposed, each unfamiliar interaction a reminder of the artist he wanted to become, yet believed he had no claim on. Mobility was invigorating but also terrifying. What truly lay beneath the facade of the man he had been? He reached a cafe, its baristas fluidly moving, busy yet thoroughly engaged. Through the great glass windows, people hurried to their destinations. Each one, a story in progress, potentially intertwined with his own journey. He lingered a moment longer, ordering a coffee to center himself. As he waited, he glanced toward a small art gallery nestled across the street, its vibrant facade a beacon amid the gray surroundings. With his coffee in hand, he turned to the gallery, a flicker of ambition igniting a spark in his chest. This was his first step into the uncharted territory which had previously terrified him. As he crossed the street, determination simmered beneath his doubts. Yet as he neared the door, a wave of trepidation washed over him. What if he wasn't ready? What if the artistic community he envisioned didn't accept him, an outsider flailing amidst seasoned creators? Resolutely, he pushed the door open, stepping into soft light. Inside, the painting seemed to pulse with energy, inviting him to explore. But his resolve was cut short by an unmistakable sensation of being out of place. The bright colors and bold strokes appeared a stark contrast to his own muted existence. Jake rubbed the back of his neck, an old habit surfacing under pressure, and moved deeper into the gallery. Each piece demanded attention, each artist communicating their voice, their passion raw and unfiltered. Could he ever bring forth his own story in such a way? Lost in thought, he nearly bumped into a gallery assistant, who greeted him with a bright smile. "Welcome. Are you an artist?" Her question struck him like a sudden chill, drawing him back to the moment. This wasn't just a pass-through, it was an open inquiry into that part of his identity he had kept hidden for so long. "I am exploring," he stumbled, words catching like thorns in his throat. Before he could collect his thoughts, she gestured toward a nearby piece, her enthusiasm lighting a fire of curiosity within him. "This one is stunning, isn't it? It captures movement beautifully." Instantly, he felt a connection, a way to contribute, to converse in a language he hadn't been fluent in until now. Art, in all its forms, was a bridge, not a wall. The transformation of feeling intimidated to feeling intrigued began slowly inside him. Suddenly, his phone buzzed, reminding him of the conversation waiting with his father. He had left a message, one that could change the course of their relationship. It was time to dive into that conflict. An art show of words and emotions awaited him. Jake took a decisive breath, the atmosphere buzzing around him. He was standing at intersection points, one leading back to insecurity, the other into unknown potential. What he didn't know was that the answer to stepping into his truth lay not just in convincing himself of his worth as an artist, but also in engaging with the people tethered to his past. As he stepped back outside, the weight shifted from fear to anticipation, having tasted both the challenge and the allure of what he could achieve. A need thrummed within him, not just for acceptance, but to express his true self, as raw as any artist's brushstroke. The moment he dialed his father's number, Jake felt the familiar tremor of fear laced with resolve. The opportunity to redefine their relationship loomed ahead. Would his resolve turn into a solid foundation, or crumble under the weight of expectation? He pressed call, determined to find out. The call connected, and the sound of ringing filled the spaces of silence, a stark contrast to the vivid art surrounding Jake. Each ring echoed like a heartbeat his own, quickening with anticipation. When the voicemail kicked in, he felt a wave of disappointment but steadied himself. This wasn't the end. As he ended the call, he stared blankly ahead, watching the flow of hurried footfalls on the sidewalk become a rhythm of its own. With every passing face, his mind began to swirl with thoughts. Why did he still feel unworthy? It was clear that this was not simply about the conversation with his father. The deeper struggle lay buried beneath years of self-doubt, entangled in a past he couldn't shake off. Among the distant noise, the gallery beckoned again, its colors brighter than before, a challenge calling for his attention. Jake started to walk back, the pull of artistry wrapping around him like a warm embrace. This time, he was not just a visitor, he had the chance to redefine the narrative he had woven for himself. When he entered, the gallery assistant approached him again, her smile a beacon of encouragement. "Did you have a chance to think more about the exhibit?" she asked, genuine curiosity lighting up her green eyes. Jake hesitated. "I'm trying to figure out what being an artist means for me." The admission felt foreign but liberating, a small crack in the facade of silence he had built. The assistant nodded knowingly, her expression unfolding like a piece of art revealing color as layers were peeled away. "That's a great start. The journey to understand yourself as an artist is often as important as the art itself." Her words hit like a revelation. It was more than just creating, it was about connection, discovery, and honesty. In that moment, he realized he had been measuring himself against a narrow definition of what an artist should be. What if he challenged those standards? Driven by his newfound insight, Jake turned toward a large canvas that dominated the far wall. The painting burst with chaotic swirls, deep blues and fiery reds clashing in passionate dance. This was not merely a depiction of a scene, but an emotional outpouring, a visceral representation of struggle and triumph. "I see anger and release," he murmured, more to himself than to her. The assistant stepped closer, her voice softening. Exactly. Art can express everything we feel, even the parts that are messy or uncomfortable. Jake's heart raced, a sense of empowerment beginning to replace the creeping doubt. This was the aspect of art he appreciated, the capability to express human complexity in hues and strokes. Could he do something similar? What if he began to translate his own battles into visuals? He felt the hesitation seep back in, a warning whispering, but who would care to listen? Each thought wrestled with his resolve, shadows flickering in his mind that questioned his worthiness. But what if there was strength in vulnerability? Maybe confronting these feelings could become his artistic voice. With determination forged in the moment, he decided he would make something real for the first time. He could start small, perhaps sketching something that evoked the feelings he carried deep inside: want, regret, longing. Taking action aligned with his thoughts felt revolutionary. Before he could second-guess himself, he grabbed the assistant's attention again. "Do you ever host workshops here? I'd like to learn." Her reaction radiated encouragement. "We do. Let me get you registered. It's a fantastic way to explore your craft and meet others." As Jake followed her to the registration desk, the thrill of possibility surged within. He was no longer merely an outsider, he was stepping into a community of artists, a collective of diverse stories waiting to be shared. Yet, as he filled out the form, a shadow loomed overhead. The impending call with his father still awaited his attention. Would he be able to reconcile the dual sides of himself emerging in this new chapter? This was not just about art, it was also about family, acceptance, and redefining expectations. He took a deep breath, a slow and steady exhalation as he signed the last line. Part of him craved to share his new perspective with his father, but would the call open the doors to his new ambitions or crush them under the weight of their history? Jake pocketed his phone, feeling the comforting weight of the journal beside it. He had taken a step forward, but now the real challenge lay ahead. The moment had arrived to bring forth two worlds: his art and his father's expectations. Would this integration spark a much-needed transformation, or plunge him back into the shadows from which he was trying to escape? Jake stepped outside, feeling the sun's warmth, and wondered if he was ready for the undeniable truths waiting just around the corner. Jake stood at the gallery's entrance, the melodious hum of life outside contrasting sharply with the sterile quiet within. He clutched the journal tighter, his thoughts racing toward the impending conversation with his father. This moment was monumental. He had taken a step toward embracing the artist within, yet a weighty burden and fear loomed large. He stepped out onto the street, freshly painted thoughts swirling in his mind. Each footfall felt electric, the world before him offering endless possibilities yet beckoning the familiar shadows of self-doubt. He headed toward the coffee shop nearby, its warmth inviting and comforting. They would call soon enough. He needed a mental preparation strategy, one that would allow him to navigate the complicated crossroads of familial connections and personal aspirations. As he settled into an intimate corner of the cafe, he opened the journal. Scrawled sketches of abstract shapes drifted across its pages, each representing fragments of his emotions. He ran a finger over one particular sketch: swirls that twisted back on themselves like a whirlpool. A representation of unresolved pain, but was that pain permanent? Could artistry serve as a release? The question echoed louder than any clatter of cups around him. The barista brought over his coffee, disrupting his spiraling thoughts. "You seem deep in thought," she commented, bright-eyed and friendly. "Just thinking about art, I guess," he replied, the half-truth slipping out with ease. "That's always a good thing. Art is all about exploring what's inside," she smiled, nudging him gently back into the moment. He felt a flicker of connection, a brief reminder of the joy art could spark between strangers. Maybe that was it. Art bridged gaps. It could establish dialogues where words might not. The thought lit a fire within him, a spark that made his heart race as he pictured himself creating without fear of judgment. Then, like a phantom, his father's voice echoed in his mind. Would he understand? Would acceptance hinge on whether Jake's brushstrokes aligned with his expectations? The rift between their dreams loomed, threatening to overshadow his aspirations, yet Jake wanted more than anything to forge a path that embraced both identities: to be an artist and a son. He sketched again, the pencil gliding across the page as ideas fused into images. Each stroke reflected the desires he feared, the longing for validation ingrained in his very spirit. There was raw beauty in the way he expressed struggles, how they coiled and receded, parallel to his journey toward artistic release. Suddenly, the cafe filled with the low ring of his phone. It was an irrefutable sign. Jake's heart thundered as he saw his father's name flash across the screen. An urge to ignore it trickled through him, but he knew he had to face it. This was part of his evolution, a necessary confrontation that could bend the arc of his future. As he swiped to answer, energy pulsed through him, a bizarre blend of fear and exhilaration. "Dad?" His voice barely rose above a whisper, parsed with uncertainty yet grounded in resolve. "Jake," came the familiar gravelly tone, both soothing and intimidating. "We need to talk." Jake swallowed hard. The impending conversation felt like a fissure opening. On one side lay his longing to express himself wholly, and on the other, the weight of familial expectations that had shadowed him throughout his life. Would he find clarity, or would this encounter push him back into the shadows? With the buzzing intensity of the moment saturating his senses, Jake prepared himself to exchange art for expectations, vulnerability for acceptance. And as he prepared to respond, he wondered, would he break this cycle of doubt, or would the echoes of his past shatter the connection he yearned to create? The truth loomed large, and he was ever closer to unveiling it. Jake's heart raced as he braced himself for his father's words, the quiet cafe fading into an indistinct hum around him. "What do you want to talk about?" he managed, knowing full well the storm brewing on the other end of the line. He could feel that weighty expectation pushing down on him like thick fog. "Your career," his father said, the tone carefully measured. "I've been hearing things about your art." Tentative energy coursed through Jake. It was inevitable, the conversation had crossed paths with his fears long before he entered the cafe. "What things?" he asked, hoping to maintain his composure against the backdrop of rising trepidation. "People are saying you're struggling. Not just with your technique, but with direction," his father stated bluntly. Each word felt like a blow, and Jake found himself clenching the coffee cup as if it held some sort of protective magic. The narrative that his father always painted, one of a clear-cut path to success, now wrangled uncomfortably with the chaos in his heart and mind. "I'm finding my way, Dad," he replied, too defensive, too raw. "Art isn't just about following directions, it's personal." "Personal doesn't pay the bills," his father replied, that familiar pragmatism cracking through Jake like ice on a frozen lake. Jake inhaled sharply. The truth was, he worried that he wasn't good enough, that every stroke was a desperate reach toward validation that had yet to come. Yet, part of him rebelled against the relentless need for approval that had plagued him since childhood. "Then maybe I don't want to just paint for profit," he said, his voice slightly firmer now. "Maybe I want to paint for myself." The silence that followed felt profound. It was as if he had thrown down the gauntlet, and now, both sides of the phone hovered in a suspended moment, grappling with the weight of his words. "Jake, listen," his father replied finally, but there was a new tone in his voice, one of surprise mixed with caution. "I understand you're passionate, but don't you want to leave a legacy? You have to make smart choices." A legacy. How often had Jake echoed that word in his own thoughts, churning it around like a bitter morsel? Yet tethered to it was the unyielding thought, was fulfilling expectations truly the only way to build one? "You want me to follow your dream, Dad, not mine," Jake replied, feeling the space of the cafe close in as he uncovered a notion that threatened to burst forth. "Don't misinterpret this, we just want you to be secure," his father's voice softened, but the undertone remained firm. "Success comes with sacrifices." The mention of sacrifices made Jake's pulse quicken, madness undulating within him. The fear of losing his own voice in exchange for security sent adrenaline coursing through his veins. Did fragility and vulnerability really equate to insecurity? He had to uphold his integrity without compromising his passion. But what if those sacrifices mean losing myself? He countered, the words escaping him with a clarity he hadn't anticipated. Jake sensed a shift, as if his father, for the first time, was contemplating the weight of Jake's truth rather than strictly evaluating his career's market value. I never wanted to push you away, he finally said, a subtle crack lining his tone. The conversation hung in the air, suspended between revelation and vulnerability. Jake's stomach churned with a swirling blend of fear and hope, possibilities unfurling like petals in sunlight. But he didn't want to simply mend what was broken. He wanted to redefine it all. Let us talk more. I'm working on something new, he offered, leaning into the invitation for dialogue, the flicker of courage shaking off his doubts. Something new? His father's inquiry opened a door Jake could feel breathing warmth against the chill of cautious expectations. Yeah. It's personal and it might not be what you expect, but I want to share it. Jake took a deep inhale, both fearful and invigorated by the prospect of revealing himself authentically. All right, Jake. I'm here. The reservation softened into something almost tender. Although Jake could feel the shadows lingering. But little did he know, this conversation would not just turn the tide of their relationship, it would push him toward a radical evolution that would either solidify or shatter their bond. Jake pondered the balance of integrity and expectation standing precariously before him. As he hung up, a blend of exhilaration and dread washed over him. He could feel the flickerings of an uncharted path ahead, one ridden with uncertainty but illuminated by his yearning to explore his true self. And though he stood on the edge of revelation, the question loomed large: was he prepared to dive deep and discover who he truly was? He gathered his thoughts, curiosity igniting once more, believing that this was just the beginning. There lay hidden truths waiting to surface, ones that could redefine everything about his art and who he desperately hoped to be. And with that, Jake set his vision toward his easel, aching to unveil the untamed essence of his journey, knowing full well that this was merely a prelude to the profound transformation awaiting him. His heart pulsed in time with his thoughts, wondering, could the creator and the son find common ground at last? Jake stood in his small studio, a cluttered sanctuary where the smell of paint mingled with the remnants of old canvases. The weight of the conversation with his father hung palpably in the air, hovering over him like a storm cloud. He moved deliberately, soaking in the chaos around him, splashes of color, brushes strewn about, unfinished pieces cluttering the workspace, each holding the potential of unexplored stories. As he faced the blank canvas, he grappled with the instinct to create, a force battling against the gnawing doubts instilled by the past. What did it mean to paint for himself? The question nagged at him, a tender spot in his psyche that required confrontation. Stepping closer, he dipped a brush into the deep crimson paint, pouring his frustration and yearning onto the canvas, the strokes initially furious and chaotic. As the colors blended, a different feeling began to emerge. Something raw, the essence of struggle transformed into something almost beautiful. With every stroke, Jake felt a surge of defiance against the disapproval he internalized. Vulnerable emotions bubbled to the surface as he pressed on, depicting a scene that encapsulated both the chaos of his upbringing and the yearning for authenticity. It was more than just paint, it was a self-portrait laden with conflicts he often obscured under layers of indifference. This was simply not just an exploration of his abilities, it was a confrontation with himself. Yet, the familiar voice of his father crept in, questioning decisions and criticizing content. The fear unfurled like an ink blot on his consciousness. Was this going to be another piece lost in the shadows of unsold work, or would it resonate with someone out there? Jake stopped, brush poised in midair, feeling the weight of uncertainty settling in. What if this piece wasn't enough? But then he recalled the sake of authenticity. In a world so driven by accolades and monetary gain, was it not worth embracing the personal? That thought grabbed hold of him like a lifeline, pushing him to dive deeper into the truth of his expression. This was his moment, an opportunity to weave his experiences into something meaningful, irrespective of external validation. When the last stroke dried, he stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow, out of breath from the emotional intensity of creation. For the first time in a long time, Jake felt a flicker of hope, a glimmer that fueled his spirit. However, there remained a nagging detail. How would he present this to his father? Jake clutched his sides, the vulnerability he felt was cloaked in the fear of dismissal. He reached for his phone to capture the image of the piece, pausing briefly to stare at it again. Maybe this was a crucial step in rekindling a connection, perhaps simply sharing with his father wasn't enough. What if he invited him along to witness his journey, to see that art could transcend the mere expectations others set for him. Critics in Jake's mind would try to marginalize his vision, but he couldn't surrender to their hoarse whispers any longer. This was not just the potential of a painting, it represented his commitment to authenticity, risking the vulnerability of sharing who he was with the world and yes, with his father. A text pinged, shaking him from his thoughts. It was his father, a brief message just saying, "Can't wait to see what you've been working on." No unpacking, no burdening expectations, there it was, an opening. With hands trembling slightly, Jake framed a response, detailing his evolving piece. It was time to invite his father into a world that existed far beyond security, a realm where fears were painted, and truths unearthed. But as he sent the message, a sudden realization washed over him. What if this invitation led to revelations neither of them were prepared for? The thought slithered like a shadow across his heart. With that lingering notion heavy in his chest, Jake couldn't help but wonder, would he be ready to face what lay on the other side of honesty, both for himself and in the eye of his father? His process had begun, but with every stroke of courage, Jake pondered one undeniable truth. The real inquiry remained: how would this dynamic shift shape him, and would it secure the bond or unravel it altogether? Jake stood before the canvas, its surface now alive with the colors of his emotional journey. Each stroke had been a dialogue with his innermost self, yet anxiety gnawed at him as he contemplated sharing his work with his father. The art, raw and vulnerable, echoed the conflicts that had long divided them. In those moments spent creating, he discovered shards of himself that he had tried hard to keep hidden. Now, it was time to confront what lay beyond the comfort of self-discovery, the very real possibility of connection or contention. As he cleaned his brushes, the rhythmic strokes against the sink sounded like a countdown. The weight of expectation hung heavy on his shoulders, and he could almost hear his father's voice, laced with skepticism, whispering suggestions of doubt and practicality. What would happen when he unveiled this creation, this in-depth exploration of his spirit? Will his father even understand? Jake's mind raced, contemplating having a conversation that might reshape their relationship. He could visualize the pieces falling into place or shattering. This was no longer just about the painting, this was a crucible for their fractured bond. It was daunting, yet liberating. A few hours later, Jake stood outside a small cafe, waiting for his father. The evening sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the scene. He could feel the chill of uncertainty wrapping around his spine. Would the impending meeting reinforce his identity, or would it unravel the layers of courage he'd built up through his art? The door swung open, and his father strode in, looking somewhat out of place amidst the cafe's trendy ambience. Jake's heart thudded in his chest, each beat resonating with the potential for disappointment or acceptance. As they greeted one another, Jake noted the subtle change in his father's demeanor, a slight smile piercing through the usual stern expression. "Thank you for coming," Jake began, his voice steadier than he felt. "I wanted to show you something I've been working on." The two settled at a small table, tension palpable around them, and Jake could sense the questions bubbling just beneath the surface of his father's composed exterior. He took a breath, steadied himself, and pulled out his phone to present a picture of the vibrant canvas. His father's eyes narrowed slightly, the anticipation was almost unbearable. This is different from your previous work," he said, the observation layered with confusion. Jake could feel judgment creeping in, the old familiar script ready to mutter criticisms. But perhaps this time, Jake wasn't prepared to let it conquer him. Different in what way? Jake challenged, trying to keep his voice steady, fighting against the urge to retreat into self-doubt. "I don't know, it's more abstract, less traditional." "It's not something you'd find hanging in a gallery," his father replied, his words a mix of truth and disappointment. Jake's heart sank a little, but he pushed back against the tide of defeat. "That's the point," he explained, passion igniting his voice. "It's not about approval or tradition. It's my experience, my struggle captured in paint. I wanted to embrace that." Their eyes met, and for a fleeting moment, Jake sensed vulnerability flickering in his father's gaze. It was an opening, a crack in the facade. "You think it's worth something?" His father responded, a hint of genuine curiosity now laced into his tone. "Yes," Jake stated firmly, feeling a swell of defiance. It's worth everything to me. This is who I am, regardless of whether it resonates with the outside world. I wanted you to see that. Silence fell between them as his father absorbed the weight of Jake's words. Jake saw the tension shift, a turning point that could either bridge the distance or create further chasms between them. Moments stretched on, and Jake realized the stakes had never been higher. The next words his father spoke could either scare him back into his shell or sweep away an old pattern rooted deeply in their history. The atmosphere was electric, each second pulsing with raw emotion and the anticipation of transformation. Would they both unravel their truths today, or would this moment dissolve into another missed connection? As Jake braced himself for what came next, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real journey was just beginning. Jake found himself indoors, standing in the same cafe where he had once felt the thrill of possibility blooming within him. Now, as he sat across from his father, the weight of expectation transformed the air around them into a palpable tension. Yesterday's revelation echoed through his mind, a powerful reminder of the artistic freedom he had begun to embrace, but in the shadow of his father's presence, anxiety washed over him. I didn't think you would ever paint something like this, his father said, a hint of disbelief lacing his words. Jake's heart raced. Would this be a moment of acceptance or another moment of dismissal? This is me, Jake asserted, his voice growing steady despite the tremors within. I'm not trying to conform to anything traditional. I'm expressing my journey, my struggles. His father studied the image of the vibrant canvas displayed on Jake's phone, the colors swirling and colliding in ways that defied expectations. But will anyone see the value in it? He asked, the practicality in him surfacing once again. Jake felt a surge of frustration. Art isn't just about monetary value. It's about authenticity and connection. He paused, gathering his thoughts as he balanced respect with determination. This piece carries my voice, my truth. If it resonates with even one person, it's worth it. The moment hung heavily between them. Jake could feel his pulse quickening, his heartbeat a testament to the vulnerability he was exposing. Finally, his father sighed, and for a brief instant, it felt as if the world outside had faded. I just wanted your path to be secure, Jake. I thought being practical would keep you safe. The truth in those words struck Jake like the final stroke of a brush, a powerful revelation to unravel the complexity of their relationship. Did his father believe that your worth was tied to your ability to secure safety? But security often comes at the cost of your spirit, Jake pressed on, emboldened by the intimacy of the moment. Can't you see that this is my security? Finding joy, purpose, and expressing who I am at my core is what allows me to be a great father to Lily. He could see the understanding flicker in his father's eyes, a hesitant realization that he had never encountered before. It was strange, yet exhilarating. This was a pivotal confrontation not just about art, but about their shared humanity. You're saying you want to inspire her through your choices rather than protect her through mine, his father acknowledged, the tone softer now. Yes, Jake replied, feeling a sense of freedom unlocking inside him. I want to cultivate a legacy of courage and creativity in her life. By pursuing my passion and embracing authenticity, I can teach her that it's okay to chase her dreams, no matter what anyone else thinks. The distance between them began to close, an invisible bridge forming upon his spoken words. A shared understanding breathed life into a space that had long been riddled with unspoken expectations and fatigue. Yet, questions lingered about how his father would respond. What if I could embrace this with you? His father asked tentatively. What if we can find a way to see this differently together? Was his father truly offering an olive branch? Jake felt the layers of doubt peeling away, replacing them with cautious hope. I would love that, he said, the weight of relief settling comfortably within him. With tentative laughter, his father spoke. Maybe I've always thought too traditionally. This is new territory for us both. The comment hung heavy, yet it felt like a welcome shift. It was remarkable how art had opened a doorway leading to deeper conversations, a pathway of discovery that went beyond criticisms and expectations. Jake felt invigorated by this possibility, a true collaboration emerging from the shadows of misunderstanding. So, what's next for you as an artist? His father asked, genuine curiosity lacing his tone. Jake mirrored the lightness he sensed in the air. I've just signed up for workshops. I want to learn more and connect with other artists. I'm going to keep painting and go beyond what scares me. His father nodded, an approving smile breaking through. I'd like to see your progress. Go ahead and show me every messy piece along the way. We can learn to appreciate it together. The obstacles that had long dominated Jake's thoughts seemed to dissolve, disengaging the tight grip they had held over him. For the first time, he felt the exuberance of growth merging into a clearer vision for his future, one that included not just his endeavors as an artist, but also his role as a father. As they spoke, the cafe transformed from a backdrop of turmoil to one of collaboration and understanding. Jake's heart felt lighter, echoing with the newfound perspective that had manifested between them. Thank you for seeing me, Jake said, his voice quieter but filled with authenticity. His father reached out, placing a hand atop Jake's. And thank you for showing me what it means to live in truth. Let us not let that fade away. As their conversation unfolded and laughter filled the spaces that insecurity had once claimed, Jake finally felt the fusion of their worlds turning into a reality. Now, as they began to explore artistry together along with their individual journeys, Jake understood he was not just an artist but a father, weaving a legacy of courage and creativity to inspire the next generation. With each word shared, Jake embraced his identity with solid confidence, the tremors of acceptance and artistry fueling his spirit. He knew he had conquered an enormous hurdle, defining not only who he was but what future he would embrace with the vibrant spirit of an artist strong enough for both himself and his family. It was liberation forged through fearless expression, and as he looked toward a horizon of new beginnings, he felt an unwavering sense of purpose blossoming from within, a palpable testament to his journey towards fulfillment. Now is the time. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because your support matters. Comment your reactions and theories about this monumental ending. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative conclusion.